I'm not aware of another current CEO who operates the way that he does. But if you go back in history, you find characters more like him, especially like the industrialists of the late 1800s, early 1900s. People like Henry Ford or Andrew Carnegie or Thomas Watson, who built IBM. If you go back and read the biographies of people like that, Andrew Mellon, Cornelius Vanderbilt, like those guys ran very similar to the way that Elon runs things. The top line thing is just this incredible devotion from the leader of the company to fully, deeply understand what the company does and to be, completely knowledgeable about every aspect of it and to be in the trenches and talking directly to the people who do the work, deeply understanding the issues and, being the lead problem solver in the organization. And basically what Elon does is he shows up every week at each of his companies. He identifies the biggest problem that the company's having that week and he fixes it. Right. And then he does that every week for 52 weeks in a row. And then each of his companies has solved the 52 biggest problems that year. And, most other large companies are still having the planning meeting, for the pre-planning meeting, for the board meeting, for the presentation, for this, with the compliance review and the legal review. And he's just like, it's this level of both like incredible intellectual capability coupled with incredible force of personality, moral authority, execution capability, focus on fundamentals. That is just like really amazing to watch. And then, by the way, the side effect of it is he attracts many of the best people in the world to work with him. Because if you work with Elon, like the expectations are through the roof in terms of your level of performance, and he is going to know who you are, and he is going to know what you've done, and he's going to know what you've done this week, and he's going to know if you're underperforming, and he may fire you in the meeting if you're not carrying your weight. But if you are as committed to the company as he is and working hard and capable, many people who have worked for him say that they had the best experience of their lives when they were working for him. And so then there's this attraction thing, and that's why I think his companies compound the way they do. And people look at this from the outside and they're like, how can people tolerate this guy and da 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 da. And inside the company, people are like, finally. There's a famous line. Somebody used to work in one of the other aerospace companies and went to work at SpaceX and said, he was asked what it was like. And he said, it's like being dropped into a shocking zone of competence. Everybody around me is like so absolutely competent. And look, most of us never have that experience. Most people are never in an organization where like the bar is held that high. And as a consequence, the competence level is so high and stays so high and even rises over time. And again, to his massive credit, he has been able to do that repeatedly. And I don't know if he'd agree with this, but the way I think about it is he actually delegates almost everything. Like he's not involved in most of the things that his companies are doing. He's involved in the thing that is the biggest problem right now until that thing is fixed. And then he doesn't have to be involved in it anymore. And then he can go focus on the next thing that's the biggest problem for that company right now. So like for example, in manufacturing, there's this concept of the bottleneck, right? And so in any manufacturing chain, there's always some bottleneck. There's always something that is keeping the manufacturing line from running the way that it's supposed to. And sometimes the bottleneck is at the beginning of the process. It's like we can't get enough raw material. Sometimes the bottleneck is at the end of the process. We don't have enough warehouses for the finished product, or the bottleneck might be somewhere in the middle. And if you run a manufacturing company, there's always a bottleneck. Whatever the bottleneck is holding everything up. And the job number one is to remove that bottleneck and get everything flowing again. And I think he basically has universalized that concept. And he basically looks at every company like it's, some sort of conceptual assembly line, sometimes a literal assembly line, making cars and rockets. And basically any given week, there's a bottleneck. There's guaranteed to be the main bottleneck. There's going to be one thing that's going to be the thing that's holding people back. And so the answer to your question, the resolution of the paradox is I'm going to micromanage the solution of that. I don't need to manage everything else because everything else by definition is running better than that, right? And so I can go focus on that. The other part of it that is so compelling, and this is where I think a lot of especially non-technical CEOs would really struggle to implement the method, is he really, when he identifies the bottleneck, he goes and he talks to the line engineers who understand the technical nature of the bottleneck. And if that's people on a manufacturing line, he's talking to people directly on the line. Or if that's people in a software development group, he's talking to the people actually writing the code. Right. So he's not asking the VP of engineering to ask the director of engineering, to ask the manager, to ask the individual contributor to write a report for, that's to be reviewed in 3 weeks. He doesn't do that. What he does is he goes and personally finds the engineer who actually has the knowledge about the thing. And then he sits in the room with that engineer and fixes the problem with them. Right. And again, this is why he inspires such incredible loyalty from the especially the technical people who he works with, which is they're just like, wow, if I'm up against a problem that I don't know how to solve, freaking Elon Musk is going to show up.
I can call on the guy that owns the company.
Freaking Elon Musk is going to show up in his Gulfstream, and he's going to sit with me overnight in front of the keyboard or in front of the manufacturing line, and he's going to help me figure this out. And this is the thing. It's like, okay, you're like a normal CEO running a normal company. Like, how can you possibly compete with that?